But now we turn to President Trump's legal roller coaster. He's coming off a rocky week of setbacks as the Supreme Court stopped some of his deportations under the Alien Enemies Act and appeared divided over how lower courts should handle his executive order banning birthright citizenship. But Donald Trump has an ace in his legal corner, Attorney General Pam Bondi, who often seems to operate more like his personal attorney than the top law enforcement officer for the country. During her confirmation hearings, Bondi pledged to be independent and vowed that politics would not factor into her decisions.
No one will be prosecuted, investigated because they are a political opponent. The partisanship, the weaponization will be gone. America will have one tier of justice for all. There will never be an enemies list within the Department of Justice. I believe that the Justice Department must be independent and must act independently.
Woo, how things have changed since she was sworn in just over 3 months ago. Now, the New York Times reports that Bondi, quote, sees her role as that of a surrogate, a faithful executor and high-volume messenger compelled to cede ground to empowered players in the West Wing and in her own building who exercise significant authority that rivals her own, according to interviews with 20 current and former officials. Perhaps that could also explain why, as the Times points out, she has made at least 36 near-exclusive appearances on Fox News shows during her short tenure. You know, she could come on this show. Joining us now, Paul Butler, former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst, and Liz Oyer, former DOJ pardon attorney and federal public defender. Thank you both very much for being here. Sorry for choking on my own words and talking about that. But, I mean, Paul, could you please just explain to viewers how the way Bondi is conducting herself in her job as Attorney General of the United States is so problematic? And did you also hear what Eugene and I heard in that thing? She kind of choked on one tier of justice in those confirmation hearings.
So, Jonathan, when I was a federal prosecutor and went to court, I would say, my name is Paul Butler, and I represent the United States of America. That's what every federal prosecutor says, except that Pam Bondi represents Donald Trump. She's the attorney general of his dreams because she's really more of a political operative.
He's talked about for a long time. He's wanted that. Yeah,
he's gotten it. Yeah. So again, when she says that the department is independent, it's not like it's been independent in the previous 200 years. Again, she seems to be taking marching orders from Trump about who to investigate and who to prosecute, including by putting Kash Patel and Don Boningo in charge of federal investigations, in charge of what used to be the world's best law enforcement agency. They have less experience than any other leaders of that agency in the last 100 years.
Liz, you are suing the DOJ for records related to your termination, for your refusal to restore Mel Gibson's gun rights. There are others who have resigned because they didn't want to do something that the administration wanted them to do. What does that do, though, for the American people when lawyers like yourself, who've been doing this for a long time, who are not political, right? Your job is to be there no matter who the president is of the United States, no matter who the attorney general is. What does that do for the justice system in this country?
It's really dangerous. I mean, that's the big problem with it, to root out career experts who are trying to use their years of experience to inform the decisions that are being made by the department about key issues related to public safety. That is just dangerous. It's irresponsible, it's reckless, and it makes us less safe as a country. In my case, I was fired. I didn't resign, I was just fired. And that occurred after I gave my advice based on my experience about what I believed was in the interests of our public safety as a country.
Paul, Elise here. I would like to talk about the Trump DOJ's move to basically take out the layer of checks and balance, so to say, before indicting a member of Congress and making it easier to indict members of Congress, federal prosecutors around the country. It'll be easier for them. What is this going to change in the law and in the way that corruption cases against public officials have been previously pursued? And would this, work both ways if it stays in effect? So ostensibly, and a Democrat's in power, they could essentially do the same thing.
Yes. So, Elise, I worked at the public integrity section, and whenever there was a considered prosecution of a congressperson, we had to sign off on it, even if the prosecution and investigation originated in a U.S. attorney's office. We had to sign off on it because we were the experts. We knew what was going on all over the country. We understood how this potential prosecution weighed in with regard to the other work that the Department of Justice was doing. And so now this proposed move to take that layer of review out. If a U.S. attorney wants to prosecute a congressperson, then he or she can. They still have to get the approval of the Attorney General, but as we were just discussing, that person is Pam Bondi. She's going to say yes to whatever Donald Trump wants, including now this potential of political prosecutions. Think about what happened in New Jersey, where allegedly congresspeople are being investigated now for just doing their job, for going to a facility that they're supposed to conduct oversight of. So typically, that would come to the public integrity section. We'd say yes or no, that can be prosecuted. Now, if Alina Habba wants to do that, she can.
Liz, this gets to retribution.
Yeah.
I mean, the president made it clear during the campaign that he was going to go after his political enemies, and the moment he got inaugurated, he just started, and he continues. I think we have a graphic of the prominent people that he has targeted. Paul talked about the mayor of Newark, Ras Baraka, the potential of arrests of members of Congress, but he's also gone after judges and prosecutors. What does that do to the people like yourself, like you and Paul, former prosecutors, who are the front line in terms of the defense of the rule of law?
Yeah, so it's a total misuse of the department's resources. The resources of the Department of Justice are meant to keep us safe, to uphold our laws, and to uphold our civil rights. And they are being used right now to defeat those very interests, which is very concerning. What's happening with the leadership of the department is the shots are really being called in the White House. The New York Times article you referenced reported that Stephen Miller, who is not even an attorney, is actually the person who is making all of the decisions that are then being pushed down to the Department of Justice. So that is not how things have ever operated in our history. And it's on issues that are big and important, but it's also on minutia. And if I could just share a quick anecdote.
Yeah.
When I was at the department before I was fired, we were getting bombarded daily with these orders from the Attorney General. Pam Bondi is signing memos to the workforce that are giving us our marching orders, telling us, you are all the president's lawyers, carry out his mission. And it got down so far into the minutia that we got a memo to the 115,000 employees of the department saying the Department of Justice is abolishing paper straws, because the president doesn't like paper straws. So it is our obligation as attorneys in the Department of Justice to eradicate the scourge of paper straws and replace them with plastic. I mean,
Liz,
it's Looney Tunes.
There are real things happening in this country, serious things that people are dealing with. Yeah. It doesn't matter what side of the spectrum you're on politically. And so, I'm gobsmacked that the people who are who spend their lives thinking about the rule of law, defending and protecting the rule of law, the Constitution, are being asked to do things just because, Donald Trump doesn't want to do them. I guess I probably shouldn't be as shocked as I am because of where we are politically. But I guess, what? I just can't believe. So how is
usually I'm the one.
I know. I
can't talk.
What is the mood inside DOJ as these things have happened?
Well, a lot of people took advantage of the second DOJ buyout offer recently because they declined the first one. They saw how things were going. And after seeing it for a couple of months, they said, oh, no, this is not for me. So people have fled the department.
Brain drain.
Yeah. I mean, lots of incredibly smart, talented lawyers who have spent years or even decades at the department have left because the morale is low and people feel like they do not have the freedom to share their views, and they feel like they're not supported in their mission, and they feel like they're being asked to do things that are not appropriate.